WWE produced a 24 episode on WrestleMania 35, which took place last year in Eastwood from New Jersey at MetLife Stadium, and this is the 6th 24 WrestleMania themed show they've done. The first one was called WrestleMania 30 for the show in New Orleans. Then they did Silicon Valley for 31. Then they did Dallas for 32, 33 Orlando, and 34 New Orleans again. So it's the sixth one, New York. We'll see how this goes. I'm interested into seeing how... I mean, it's weird because they've done so much on the show already. There's been so many 24s. There's been 365. There's been documentary specials. I feel like I already know everything I need to know about the backstage of WrestleMania 35. I've done a whole bunch of videos on documentaries they've done on that show. So they've already done a lot for it. I'm sure there's going to be even more for 36. So, yeah, they do this. They release it every night after the Royal Rumble, and we'll see how this is. So we start off with Becky Lynch, who is getting ready for her match in the main event of WrestleMania. Then we go to Kofi Kingston talking. Then we go to Seth Rollins. So that was what WrestleMania last year was built around, those three stars. Becky, Seth, and Kofi, and that's probably going to be the theme of the show. I think they've all had additions though on the show. Like Becky had her own 24 that took place during the show. Kofi had his 24 and Seth had a 365. So you've done a lot already with them. We also hear from the IIconics, who I guess they're doing a 24 on them too for this show. So I probably should have known they were going to win that match. It came as a big surprise. We started off after the intro with the New Day doing a WrestleMania press event in March 16th of 2018, which took place a whole year before WrestleMania was announced for MetLife Stadium. That is funny because I don't think there's any way Kofi Kingston believed he was going to win the title in a year at that moment. There's no way. So we got a lot with Kofi getting ready for his match. We see the fans interacting with the wrestlers at Access. We see the IIconics. So it looks like those are the four it's going to concentrate on. Becky, Kofi, the IIconics, and Seth Rollins. We see the IIconics, and we see Peyton Royce as a child, actually not as a child, maybe 11, 12 years old, talking about wanting to go to wrestling, and she's very young there. So, yeah, she grew up very attractive. And we see the two of them, and it means a lot to them. I just think, when I think we look at the IIconics, their title reign was a joke. It was not good. It is what it is. It was a good moment for him. It was fine. I think the whole thing was... They just, the in-ring work was really the problem that was lacking in their title reign. They have a great look. They're both very attractive, and they're from Australia. They want that country represented. It's a good market. It's just the in-ring work following WrestleMania was, not good. Once we finish up with the IIconics segment, we go to Seth Rollins. He's talking about his journey to WrestleMania. I guess they're all going to give their backgrounds, and Seth to talk about his previous moments. He really kind of main evented WrestleMania in 31. Even though necessarily it really isn't the main event. I mean, he just did a cash-in. The main event advertises Brock Roman, so if you're going technical in terms of the whole scope of it being promoted as a main event, he wasn't, but he did. He cashed his Money in the Bank in that match, and he won the main event, so I guess. So he talks about Becky, who's his girl at this point. They didn't get engaged, and I guess they started off at the end of January, and that's after the Royal Rumble. So they both won the Rumble that year, and they both won the major titles at WrestleMania. So I guess that's when they started to date, when they were both at the highest peaks of their careers. Then we go to Becky Lynch, and she gets her moment, and of course they go to the Royal Rumble last, where she eliminates Charlotte Flair last, and she goes on to WrestleMania, and we'll hear more from her as she talks about. We see a lot of the wrestlers interacting before the show. We even see Undertaker and Batista talk during part of it. Undertaker was there. He was not wrestling there, but he was at the show. Next, we get to hear from Ricochet, and he actually he wrestled at WrestleMania exactly 1 year to the day that he debuted the year before NXT TakeOver in New Orleans, and that was a classic takeover. Then he debuted in the ladder match for the North American title. 1 year later, he's wrestling at WrestleMania, making his WrestleMania debut. I thought Ricochet came off very likable. He's talking about his experience heading into the big show. He did very well there. Now we finally get to the recap of the show. They start off on the pre-show. We see highlights of some of the matches. Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder winning the Raw Tag Team titles. Carmella winning the Women's Battle Royal. Then we get to the Cruiserweight match, and then Braun Strowman winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. Next, we get to the show, the main card that starts off, and we get the goddess, Alexa Bliss, as our WrestleMania host. She comes out and she introduces Hulk Hogan, gets a good reaction. The Hulk Hogan and Alexa Bliss pose together to start WrestleMania. And then, of course, up next, we go to Brock and Seth. They were originally going to go on a lot later, but they got switched to the opening match, and that's how they did it. It was a surprise. I was very surprised they were going to start the show with the Universal title. They've done that before. I think 27 and 28, I believe, started with World Titles. That was the World Heavyweight title. This is a Universal title. They've been building out big, so Brock Lesnar in the opening match was strange, but I guess the way they did it to get the fans into it. And I think this actually came off better as the opener than it would have if it came on second to last. So that's how they did it this year, or last year. They show us highlights of Brock and Seth. Brock killing him, throwing him through the announcer board cover, German suplexes, and of course the match starts and ends very quickly. Brock speeding him up again, but Seth hits a low blow on Brock once the referee's distracted. He hits 3 curb stomps. 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins, your new Universal Champion. He defeats Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania again. He didn't pin him at 31. He took the belt from Brock, and he takes the belt again from Brock at 35. So he clearly has Brock Lesnar's number at WrestleMania. And he'd beat him at SummerSlam later that year, so hey, he has Brock's number for sure. He got all 3 of his titles off Brock. That's impressive. Seth talks about his iconic pose as champion. He had Hulk Hogan do the classic pose as champion, Shawn get on his knees and worship the belt, basically. And for Seth Rollins, he has the whole base, helicopter with the belt, which is really cool. Seth and Becky celebrate the win, Seth's win, and they hug and kiss in the back. And of course, Seth was asked that by a producer. I don't think they were keeping the relationship secret this time, so I think we're probably unhappy that they were asked about that. But of course, they would be a couple and they would win champions on that show. They'd win both titles together on that show. Next, we go to Ricochet in his moment. So I guess they skipped Randy Orton and AJ Styles, and I would have liked to see Randy Orton's reaction backstage to light ruining the match. We go to the SmackDown Tag Titles. Ricochet and Aleister Black challenged Nakamura and Rusev, and the Usos actually were the SmackDown champs. They won the match. And the fourth team, who was it? Cesaro and Sheamus. They were still together at this time, and that was a good showcase for Ricochet. This was actually a good match. It was a surprisingly good match. It wasn't necessarily a match everyone's looking forward to. It's a for the 4-way tag match, but the Usos won this match, and they probably should have had their own moment too, because this was the first time they got on the main show and they won, retained their titles. They probably should have had their own moment on 24. So they show a cool moment, Ricochet and Shawn Michaels. I guess they're really close. Ricochet learned a lot from Shawn, and they show him bonding, and even from TakeOver the year before. It's pretty cool. Next, we go to Triple H and Batista, and this was later in the show, so I assume they'll go back to Kofi, and they'll probably go to him later, but we see highlights from that, and they show, I think it's Xavier Woods singing Batista's theme song, and they showed Xavier and Tyler Breeze singing Dave's theme song, which was pretty funny. Next is Triple H and Batista, and they even have Walk Alone by, I think it's Saliva. And they're playing it like as just a guitar, what do you call it? Instrumental or whatever. So I thought that was pretty cool, and they show highlights from that match. That was later in the show, so it's not in order. And they'd show highlights from that match, and once it was over, we didn't get anything from Batista on this documentary. I guess they did the whole thing just for his own 24, but... Next, we go to the IIconics, which was way earlier in the show before Triple H and Batista, but it's not in order, so that's next. They show highlights from that match. In this match, you had Sasha Banks and Bayley defending their WWE Women's Tag Team titles against, you had Nia Jax and Tamina. You had Beth Phoenix and Natalya as a team, and you had the IIconics, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, who would win this match. And they showed their emotions before the match, and of course they're very happy once they win. If I'm not mistaken, I think Peyton Royce is wearing tights as a tribute to Eddie Guerrero. Sasha Banks did that too, I think at WrestleMania 32, so I guess they're both huge Eddie fans. And in this match, Billie Kay would pin Bayley, and the IIconics win the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. They're happy, they're celebrating, they're both in tears. It's a very emotional moment for them. The match itself was pretty average, wasn't very good, but it's a great moment for them. Next, we go to Kofi Mania, and if he would win the WWE Championship from Daniel Bryan in this next part. We get highlights of Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston. They had the best match on that show easily. It was a great match. It was very exciting. There's parts where, you knew Kofi was going to win, but they tease you, are they going to have Daniel Bryan retain the title? But it goes back and forth. Eventually, Kofi makes the comeback. Rowan was taken out by New Day after he tried to interfere. Kofi hits Daniel Bryan with a series of kicks and hits him with the Trouble in Paradise. 1, 2, 3. Kofi Kingston, your new WWE champion. An amazing moment when he beat Daniel Bryan on that show. Fantastic match and a fantastic moment, a fantastic celebration for Kofi. Kofi celebrating with his kids is an amazing moment, and he said it's the best moment of his life, or of his career, probably up there with his life too. And still a fantastic celebration scene. That was definitely the best part of WrestleMania that year. They say they talk about Kofi's the first African American champion. I suppose if you're talking, I don't know, I can't count The Rock. Booker T was champ. He was world champ. Not WWE champ, I guess that's in count. So was Mark Henry. But I guess if you count someone who's fully African American, you can't be mixed race. But Kofi was definitely that was certainly the biggest part of it. Kofi winning it. WWE has never really had a strong. Besides The Rock, since The Rock, they really haven't had a top African American superstar who's been one of their top guys, and Kofi he broke through and he got that great moment at Mania. Next, we get to Kurt Angle's retirement, and this was probably the worst part of Mania. He got to have a final match at WrestleMania. I guess that's good for Kurt. Just having to wrestle Baron Corbin. He obviously wanted to wrestle John Cena, and John Cena really wanted to wrestle Kurt Angle. That was clearly a match they should have done. Why didn't they do it? Why not just have Kurt Angle, John Cena as Kurt Angle's final match? Kurt gets what he wants. Cena gets a great match. Cena obviously wins, and Kurt has a great send-off. He walks up the ramp. They don't have to chant "You suck." They chant "Thank you, Kurt." Perfect ending, like Ric Flair's last match, like Shawn Michaels. That's what they should have done. It was such an easy match to book, instead they went with this fucking Baron Corbin bullshit. And people hate Baron Corbin regardless. I don't think he even needed to retire Kurt Angle. It's been a year, no one even remembers that, so he didn't need to do this. I liked how they had Kurt Angle's theme music playing on piano. I remember they did a 24 with The Undertaker too. When he lost the streak to Brock, they had his theme on the piano. But it's kind of cool. They had Kurt, the gold medal's theme on the piano when he retired. Of course, wish the match was better, but that's what it is. Then we get to the main event. Charlotte had her big entrance with the helicopter, and then Ronda had Joan Jett play her down to the ring. And they showed Becky getting ready before it, and she said she wasn't nervous. And I don't know, maybe she should have been, because the match was really dull. So in this match, first they show Ronda taking that dangerous backwards bump to the outside. I still thought that was just crazy that they had her take that. So I think watching it back, it wasn't really a horrible match. I was expecting them to tear the house down, and they did not. Just had a decent matchup. I think the big problem was at the end, he had two botch finishes. Ronda and Becky do a double hip toss to Charlotte, and she's supposed to go through a table in the corner, and the table does not break under Charlotte's weight. It just kind of budges a bit, does not break. That takes Charlotte out, and Ronda and Becky have the exchange, and Ronda has Becky up for a move on her shoulders. However, the Piper's Pit, but Becky reverses it, and she just pins Ronda, and Ronda's shoulder, she has her in a backslide, and Ronda's shoulder is clearly above the ground, and it's above after the one. She puts it down for the 2-3, but it did not look good. It was a bad botch. I think those were the two big problems. But Becky wins. It was still a great moment for her. She main evented WrestleMania. The 3 did. It was a great moment for that to happen, and of course Becky Lynch wins both titles in WrestleMania at the main event. She wins both the Raw and SmackDown Women's titles. Becky and Seth share a kiss in the back as Becky becomes the double champ. Becky 2 belts Raw and SmackDown Women's champion. She of course is the Raw Women's champion still to this day, and she will go into WrestleMania most likely as Raw Women's champion at 36. They do the video package. You have Yannicka singing Rockstar as the WrestleMania recap video package. For 24. Music video, not video package, music video. I liked it. I thought the documentary was very good. I always enjoy 24, and I especially like the WrestleMania ones they do each year, and I thought this was very good. They gave us a good insight. We got to see backgrounds of people who were on the show leading up to their journey, the people who really mattered, who the show was built around, who were going to get WrestleMania moments. I think every single 24 basically takes whoever's getting a big WrestleMania moment this year gets to be on it. And you had Becky Lynch, you had Seth Rollins, you had Kofi Kingston, you had the IIconics, and you had Ricochet too was getting a good moment. And I thought this was a good documentary overall, and I enjoyed it.